So this was the final Resident Evil game I had yet to play out of the original trilogy, and probably the one I was looking forward to most, partly because I found the concept of going through Raccoon City itself interesting, rather than just getting lost in its police station. But also an appeal was seeing how the original was and comparing it to its remake, as the general consensus I see for the remake is that by itself it's a good or decent game, but an awful remake. My opinion of Resident Evil 3 Remake is that, yeah, it's decent, but even I was disappointed with how it turned out. This disappointment was mainly due to the fact that Nemesis, probably the most iconic horror creature in gaming, was wasted. Now, that might sound a bit odd coming from someone who never played the original, but from everything I had heard and seen about Nemesis, it was a complete upgrade from the previous tyrant, Mr. X, in Resident Evil 2. Mr. X in the remake of 2 genuinely might be the best thing about that game, so I was expecting Nemesis to exceed what Mr. X was. A bigger area to stalk you in, since Resident Evil 3 takes place in the city itself, even smarter AI with more ways to track you and being harder to shake off. But nah, there's one small section where he chases you for a bit, then he turns into a dog halfway through the game. Yeah, I was not happy when I saw this, because at that point, even not playing the original, I knew this game was not going to reach the heights I thought it would. Anyway, let me stop cussing the remake for now. This is primarily a review for the actual good version of Resident Evil 3, so let me start talking about that. But I'm sure, as you have gathered, I will be mentioning Resident Evil 3 Remake and comparing the two much more than I did in my Resident Evil 2 review. Just like I said with that review, the most important aspect of a Resident Evil game personally, especially in a survival horror entry, is their areas and level design. I had heard that this game was more action orientated and linear than its previous two entries, so I was interested to see how this translated to the level design. I'll start with the starting area, which is Raccoon City itself. So Raccoon City as a level, while not as complex as the Spencer Mansion or the RPD, it still did enough to stand alongside them. It's not as much of a labyrinth as those two are, but there's still a lot going for it, mainly having a lot of choice to approach it in certain orders, plus featuring a decent amount of backtracking. Yes, I actually like backtracking and opening up areas that were previously inaccessible. Going through the city in specific orders actually matters to an extent as well, as unique scenes happen depending on what parts of the city you go to first, which makes it very replayable. I will be saying the word replayable a lot in this review, as a lot of aspects in this game make it so. Plus, the atmosphere is also very strong in the city, but also the other areas as well in the game. The clock tower, the infamous cut area from the remake, was one of the areas I was looking forward to seeing most, since everyone kept crying about it being taken out of the remake. And I have to say, what were they thinking disposing of this level? It's arguably the most significant area in the game narratively. So much happens here. But despite that, as a level itself, it's very solid. It definitely reminded me a lot of the guardhouse in Resident Evil 1, focusing mainly on the atmosphere and puzzles, while not dealing with too much enemies. Also, that reminds me, I really enjoyed the puzzles in this game. It honestly might have the best roster of puzzles in the series. I think in Resident Evil 3 Remake there was like literally 2 puzzles and they were piss easy. I love this water puzzle that is apparently infamous for being tough. I don't know, I thought it wasn't that hard, but it was very enjoyable. But anyway, yeah, the clock tower also has a very unique, nice aesthetic, which is quite a prominent occurrence with the majority of areas in this game, like the also cut park section. This area feels more of a transitional area, but I love the look and atmosphere here. Yes, let's just cut all these interesting areas and replace them with a boring sewer level. Yes, that will improve upon the original. Although, to be fair, I will give the remake this. The hospital is definitely improved upon in that game. It feels way more fleshed out there. Let's just forget about this knockoff Resident Evil 4 cabin section. But yeah, in the original, I still think it's pretty decent, but it's very straightforward and simple. Now, I can't forget about what enhances most of these levels, Nemesis. This guy completely levels up the experience to an insane degree. Every time you hear that ominous music indicating that it can appear any moment to fucking Superman punch you, not only makes you feel tense, but it's just extremely fun. To either run like a coward or do what I did and be an idiot and choose to fight him the majority of the time. Can I heal on the floor? No, I can't. I'm dead. If I don't get up now, I'm dead. I'm dead. Oh, I was doing well as well. Fuck off. Help me, Brett. Oh, fuck off. That better not kill me. That's some bullshit. That is some bullshit. Are you fucking crazy? The game would be so much weaker without him, or if you turn him into a giant dog halfway through the game. He is literally a constant presence who never disappears for too long. He feels way more of a threat narratively as well as gameplay wise, with him actually offing a STARS member, you know, his actual objective, unlike in the remake where Brad just gets turned into a zombie. And gameplay wise, he doesn't get downed by one grenade. No, you actually have to earn his item drops. I avenged you, Brad. You better appreciate this. Just a side note, speaking of that dog form in the remake, this form is replaced with this tentacled but still humanoid form in the original, which for me looks 10 times cooler. And then even his final form looks better in the original as well, with his constant regeneration and mutation, making him look like a disgusting blobby parasite. In Remake, I guess the design is fine as well, but maybe a bit too over the top. Alright, let me just stop mentioning the remake for a bit now. I can't help it, now that I have seen the light of the original. So I briefly mentioned this earlier, but I have to talk about how replayable this game is. General items such as healing items and ammo will be switched around for every playthrough. Even the grenade launcher and magnum can switch places. Also, you will notice that a lot of enemies will be randomized for certain rooms. For example, you might get zombies or dogs in a certain room, or either brain suckers or spiders in a certain room. This is a feature I really hope they will eventually bring back, as it just always tempts you into replaying. Every playthrough is different. But it's not just this. You will get a few opportunities to make a choice out of two options. I'd say these choices don't alter too much apart from a couple near the end. However, I did absolutely appreciate their inclusion and are worth playing through the game again to see all the outcomes. And finally, mainly in the first half of the game, I'm not quite sure how it works, but I think the order you choose to go in certain locations switches up certain scenes. For example, if you go to the gas station early, you will meet Carlos there, and if you go there a bit later instead, then it will be Nikolai that joins you. But to be honest, I don't know if it's dependent on the order you go in or it's just completely random. Regardless, all the features I just mentioned do a fantastic job on making this one of the most replayable games in the series, which is high praise since a lot of these games are very replayable. I imagine the emphasis on replayability in this game was due to the lack of B scenarios like in Resident Evil 2, as that's what made that game replayable, so they had to make up for it somehow in this game. On the actual gameplay itself, I mean, it's a classic Resident Evil game, what do you want me to say? Although I can acknowledge the innovation it had from its previous entries. Gunpowder is a thing in this game, there's actually a shitload of various types of ammo to make. There's finally a needed quick turn, and dodging is a thing as well. I had heard that dodging was extremely hard to pull off, but I don't know, I thought it was pretty simple. Although sometimes it doesn't even matter if you dodge. The amount of times when Nemesis smacked me up and grabbed me when I dodged near a wall was BS. Get up, Carlos. I dodged. It is true that the game is a bit more action focused, but I would still say it's a survival horror. Zombies are in larger numbers and are sometimes a lot faster too. Despite the gunpowder system, you still do get a decent amount of ammo regardless. You will mainly only struggle for ammo if you decide to be an idiot like me and decide to duke it out with Nemesis every time. I will say though, it's definitely one of the harder Resident Evil games, which is a good thing, as it can up the tension, which fits for a horror game. Alright, let's get on to everyone's favourite part about Resident Evil, the story.
Father!
I mean, the premise is very basic. The whole purpose is simply to escape Raccoon City, but is the process of that actually interesting and or engaging? Surprisingly, I think it is. Yeah, of course it's not groundbreaking storytelling or anything, but I don't know, it's just fun. Nemesis, a bioweapon, being sent for the sole purpose of eliminating the elite members of the police force. I wouldn't say Brad is elite, but whatever. At least Nemesis actually halfway completes his goal in this game. By the way, I know Brad is supposed to be a wimp, but for God's sake, you are still part of an elite group. Act like it at least a bit. But yeah, the premise and concept of Nemesis is great. The UBCS, a squad of soldiers and convicts acting as a private military or mercenaries for Umbrella, were a good inclusion, with most of them being sent to the city to rescue civilians. But the main goal in actuality being a small section of them, including Nikolai, observing and recording combat data of the shitload of BOWs in the city. The concept is cool, but the characters affiliated with the group are a bit meh. Nikolai is a bit more bland than he is in the remake. He's very serious and stoic, which is fine, but I actually think I prefer his more stereotypical evil bad guy character in the remake. It just has a bit more personality. Although I do like his general role in the story, with him wiping evidence in secret for Umbrella and offering the other UBCS members with the same specific job as him because he's a greedy fucker. Carlos was definitely upgraded in the remake, even if it did divert from his original character quite considerably. He kinda just feels there in this story, despite playing as him for a whole section. He's a bit of a whiny bitch sometimes as well.
No, if we're gonna die, then we should get to choose when it happens.
And I guess I'll just talk about Jill quickly since I've diverted to talking about the characters now. I remember seeing a decent amount of people not liking her in the remake, since she acted a bit too much like an abrasive girl boss. And while I get that, to be fair, she has been stalked and watched for months by the company she's trying to take down, and the people she's being a bitch to in the game are people who work for Umbrella. She's also shown to have severe PTSD in that game, so yeah, I actually understand it, her character in that game, and quite like her honestly. But I also like her in the original as well. The older Resident Evil games don't exactly have much character depth, but you can tell she's very kind-hearted and also very capable and badass without having to shout and swear every other sentence.
It's my turn, bitch! Are you fucking kidding me? You guys are the ones who caused all of this. Fuck you.
But yeah, I like the progression of the story for the most part, with Jill working with the UBCS to start up the tram to reach the clock tower, which is the extraction point, and upon reaching said clock tower, Nemesis stops the game from ending, which also includes Jill getting infected. Carlos getting the vaccine is fine, but it's hard to believe that this fool can figure out how to make a vaccine. Plus, it's very convenient how the hospital is literally 30 steps from the clock tower where Jill is infected. And after Jill is cured, it was a bit hard to figure out what Jill's goal was from that point on. Like, why is she taking a stroll through the park and then going through this ugly, decrepit factory, which is for some reason next to this pretty looking park? I guess there was literally no other route for her to go. But of course, add Nemesis constantly up your arse, and it enhances not just the gameplay but the story. Also, just to shit on 3 Remake some more, after playing this game, wow, the pacing absolutely stinks in Remake, man. It's like you're on a treadmill at maximum speed, especially in the city. Yeah, after playing the remake, it's actually ridiculous how much the remake rushes through the Raccoon City section. The pacing feels very smooth in the original. But yeah, I just think it's a solid, fun story. I kind of feel weird reviewing stories for Resident Evil because people don't exactly take it seriously, and yeah, with good reason. Okay, let me just mention a few final things. The soundtrack is another banger, however, maybe not reaching the same heights as the Resident Evil 2 soundtrack. However, it might have my favourite save room theme in the series, unless Serenity from RE4 counts, then it's second. And I realised I haven't really said anything significantly negative about this game, because I don't believe there is any massive problems. Although I will say I was not a fan of both times the grave digger showed up. The first sequence was absolute arse. What the fuck is this shit, mate? Press the fucking button, you stupid prick. Oh my god, I hate this stupid part. This part sucks. This part is actually bad. And the actual boss was janky, even by old Resident Evil boss standards. So just because this enemy wasn't great in the original, that does not mean it should have been cut from the remake. The point of the remake is that they could have improved it, which in this case would not have been hard to achieve at all. Alright, so in conclusion, Resident Evil 3 is a great end to the Raccoon City saga. It innovates quite a lot on its predecessor from a gameplay perspective, in a positive way, has a lot of solid engaging levels which are substantially more memorable by the presence of Nemesis throughout. Great music and atmosphere, a bunch of features that make the game extremely replayable from both a narrative and a gameplay perspective. So I'm going to give Resident Evil 3 a 8 out of 10, bordering on a 9. The way I've talked in this review might make you think it deserves a 9, as I spoke about it mostly positive, but for me it's close, but I just feel like it doesn't reach the same heights as Resident Evil 2, which I did give a 9, but saying that, it is very close. It is fine margins, and I'd say this game, the Resident Evil 2 original and the remake of Resident Evil 1, there's not a lot to separate them. But what Resident Evil 3 is better than is its poor excuse of a remake. God, what were they thinking? Well, probably easy money, to be honest, but yeah, it's sad to see what was done with the remake. If they put the effort in, it genuinely could have been the best Resident Evil game ever, and that might seem a bit of an exaggeration, but I don't know, I'm serious. They could have easily made it into a semi-open world, solving puzzles and fighting all the different BOWs, all while being pursued and hunted down by Nemesis, with, again, like I said earlier, numerous ways of tracking and finding you in this vast environment. And also, you know what? Maybe this should be saved for another video. I mean, I'm sure everyone has spoke about this at length, but yeah, whatever. This video is about the real Resident Evil 3. And Resident Evil 3 is a banger.